All right, let's talk about something heavy, something that changed the world in a big way, 9/11. It's one of those days where anyone who lived through it remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing. Even if you weren't alive back then, you've probably heard about it in school, in documentaries, or seen images of it online. But what actually happened on 9/11? Why did it happen? And what has the impact been even all these years later? Let's get into it. So, 9/11 refers to September 11th, 2001. That morning, the United States experienced the deadliest terrorist attack in its history. 19 terrorists hijacked 4 passenger airplanes. These men were part of Al-Qaeda, a radical Islamic extremist group led by Osama bin Laden. Their plan was brutal and calculated. Use those planes as weapons to attack major targets in the U.S. At 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time, the first plane, American Airlines Flight 11, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. At first, people thought it might have been an accident, a tragic mistake. But then, just 17 minutes later, a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, smashed into the South Tower. That's when the world realized this was no accident. This was an attack. These weren't just any buildings. The Twin Towers were symbols of America's economic power. They stood tall in Lower Manhattan, home to thousands of workers and businesses. After the second impact, news outlets everywhere went live. The footage was surreal. Smoke, fire, people trying to escape, some even jumping from windows. The towers stood for a while, burning, but then, shockingly and horrifyingly, they both collapsed. The South Tower fell first, just under an hour after being hit. The North Tower came down about 30 minutes later. But the nightmare didn't end there. A third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, was flown into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Arlington, Virginia. The building partially collapsed, and more lives were lost. The fourth plane, United Airlines Flight 93, was also hijacked, but passengers on board fought back. They'd heard what had happened with the other flights, and they weren't going to let their plane be used as another weapon. They tried to storm the cockpit, and in the struggle, the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. Everyone on board died, but their actions likely saved many more lives by stopping the terrorists from reaching their final target, which was believed to be either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. In total, nearly 3,000 people were killed that day. Most were civilians, people just going to work or catching a flight. But also among the dead were firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and airline crew. First responders who ran toward the danger, not away from it. And let's not forget the thousands more who were injured or later got sick from breathing in toxic dust and debris from the collapse. Now, let's talk about why this happened. The group responsible, Al-Qaeda, was motivated by a mix of political, religious, and ideological reasons. They opposed U.S. involvement in the Middle East, American support for Israel, the presence of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia, and Western influence in Muslim countries. Their leader, Osama bin Laden, believed that attacking the U.S. directly would force it to withdraw from the region. Instead, it did the opposite. The aftermath of 9/11 was immediate and massive. Airports around the world were shut down. All planes in the U.S. were grounded. People were afraid. Nobody knew if more attacks were coming. Security was instantly tightened, especially in airports and public buildings. This led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security in the U.S., as well as the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA. If you've ever had to take off your shoes or go through full-body scanners at an airport, yeah, that's all because of 9/11. Politically, it changed everything. The U.S. launched what it called the War on Terror. Just weeks after the attacks in October 2001, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan to remove the Taliban from power since they were harboring bin Laden and other al-Qaeda members. That war went on for 20 years, the longest war in American history. In 2003, the U.S. also invaded Iraq, arguing that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorism. That part is still debated today. Back at home, laws like the Patriot Act were passed, giving the government more power to monitor communications and track down suspected terrorists. Some people supported it, saying it was needed for security. Others felt it went too far and threatened civil liberties. There was also a spike in discrimination against Muslims and people who looked Middle Eastern, which led to hate crimes and unfair treatment. That's an unfortunate part of the story, too. If you've made it this far and appreciate how clearly this is being explained, consider giving this video a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. It really helps this kind of content reach more people. In the years that followed, America and its allies worked to hunt down al-Qaeda leaders. It wasn't until 2011, 10 years after the attacks, that Osama bin Laden was found and killed by U.S. Navy SEALs in Pakistan. It was a major moment, but it didn't undo the pain or bring back the lives lost. 9/11 also had a cultural impact. Movies, books, music, even everyday language changed. People became more security aware. The skyline of New York changed forever. In the place where the Twin Towers once stood, there's now the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, as well as a new building called One World Trade Center. It's the tallest building in the U.S. and stands as a symbol of resilience and rebuilding. Every year, on the anniversary of the attacks, moments of silence are held. The names of the victims are read aloud. Bells are rung. It's a day of remembrance, not just in the U.S., but around the world. It reminds us of how fragile life is, how quickly things can change, and how important it is to stand together in the face of tragedy. But here's the thing. 9/11 didn't just change the U.S. It changed the entire world. It reshaped global politics, sparked debates about freedom versus security, and forced countries to rethink how they deal with terrorism. The ripple effects are still being felt today, in both obvious and subtle ways. So to sum it all up, 9/11 was a coordinated terrorist attack carried out by al-Qaeda. It led to massive loss of life, global grief, major changes in national security, and 2 long wars. It exposed vulnerabilities, but also showed incredible acts of bravery and compassion, from firefighters charging up collapsing towers to strangers helping each other escape chaos. It's a day we'll never forget. Not because we want to dwell on fear, but because remembering helps us learn, helps us honor the people who were lost, helps us be better prepared and more united. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you understand the story of 9/11 more clearly, give it a like and consider subscribing for more clear, human-style explanations about major world events. Stay informed, stay thoughtful, and take care of each other.